Marinaro, the sick podcast. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't easy, but Italy remains perfect at Euro 2020 with a 2-1 win in extra time versus Austria. Joining me right now to talk about the game, former professional soccer player, Sandro Grande. Ciao, Sandro.
Ciao, Tony. Come stai?
Bene, grazie, Sandro. But I got to tell you, Sandro, I sweated this one out. It's the first time I actually lost a pound, and I lost it watching the game. Listen, I knew that Austria was not going to be an easy out. I just didn't expect Italy to be as sluggish as they were for the first 90 minutes of the game.
To be honest, I was surprised as well. Looking at the fact that they had plenty of time in between each game. They had an extra day rest, if I'm not mistaken, on Austria. And I'm surprised, as you are, on the fact that they didn't come out as fresh as they did in the last few games.
Sandro, I'm going to throw a couple of questions at you, and you're going to tell me which one you think is most possible, okay? Italy is not as good as the team that won their first couple of games convincingly in this tournament. Italy is not going to play as good as they did early on in the tournament because they weren't playing in Italy and didn't have that home crowd advantage. Italy is missing Chiellini on the back line to provide that experience and that reassurance because at times they looked a little bit nervous, or simply put, Italy is very good. It was just a bad game in their system.
Look, I mean, we need to be look at the game properly. The first half, we had total control of the game anyways. Now, for me, what stood out was the fact that Barella and Immobile and Insigne and Verratti as well, their energy upon losing the ball, so their defensive transition was a little bit weaker than in the past games. At the back, Acerbi played fairly well. Bonucci played very well, so I don't think Chiellini would have made that much of a difference because I don't think Austria had so many chances that we were, oh my gosh, on the edge of our seats at every single moment of the game. What did hurt the Italians was the rotation that Austria was creating in the midfield. They were constantly dropping off and helping out the two center backs come out of the back when they were playing, and they were that little rotation was causing a little bit of confusion in the defending tactics for Italy. And honestly, Berardi stayed out wide a little bit more than every other game instead of coming inside sometimes and receiving between the lines. Insigne wasn't too fresh. But in the end, what's important at this stage of the tournament is that we won. We go forward. They got till Friday to prepare for the next game. The next game is in Munich. You know the last time Italy played in Munich, what happened. So
of course. 2006 World Cup semifinals versus Germany. They also went to extra time with 2 minutes left in extra time. Fabio Grosso scores that goal, and then Alessandro Del Piero seals the deal. They win 2-0 in Germany. They go on to the final after beat France by a score of 2-1 and win the World Cup. Yes, I remember very well. All right, he's Sandro Grande. I'm Tony Marinaro. It's a sick podcast, and it's brought to you by Essentia, the mattress of choice for many athletes, including over 25% of professional hockey players. Use code SICKPOD for a free pillow with your purchase. Essentia, beyond organic sleep. And once again, the world's only natural memory foam mattress. And that's where you can go. All right. Austria tried to put Italy to sleep. Obviously, Italy woke up with fresher legs and extra time. We'll get to that in a second. But I want to go back to the starting lineup, Sandro, with, of course, Donnarumma as your goalkeeper. Central defense, Bonucci and Acerbi there for Chiellini, who was still out of the lineup with that injury, not even fit enough to be on the bench. Di Lorenzo at right back, Spinazzola at left back. A midfield with Jorginho in between, Verratti to his left, Barella to his right, and Immobile at striker with Insigne at left wing and Berardi at right wing. So a typical 4-3-3. But now let's talk about it if we can. The decision to go with Verratti and keep out Locatelli. Your thoughts on what you saw from Verratti and whether or not you would have done the same thing?
Before I make any comment, I just want to make it clear that it's easy for us to talk behind the computer. Okay, so that needs to be clear to everybody because it's normal that for us to look at it and say Locatelli should have played instead of Verratti. Obviously, at the end of the game, we can say that because Verratti had a decent game.
Yeah.
But the reality is that Locatelli looked really, really fresh in the first 2 games, right? So it's easier for us to say it now in hindsight. At the beginning, I said to myself, you know what? There's a little bit more class in there. What I didn't like from Verratti compared to Locatelli in the first 2 games today was the fact that he was constantly coming next to or very close to Jorginho to receive the ball, whereas Locatelli was receiving it a little bit higher on the pitch at times and was attacking the box a little bit more often. So he was giving us more of an offensive threat. And he was letting Jorginho dictate where the ball was going to be played. Now you have 2 guys that want the ball all the time. So obviously you need to share it. And when you do that, if Barella's not going to be playing in between the lines closer to Immobile, it's going to be tough for them to find Immobile into feet and start combining in there because there's not many spaces and there aren't many options. So I think the decision didn't go well today. Is it going to go well on Friday? Hopefully he gets it right, whether it's going to be Locatelli or it's going to be Verratti again. And like I said before, I mean, we can't be criticizing these world-class coaches. All we can do is give our opinion in hindsight because it's easier for us to do it in hindsight than for him.
Yeah. And obviously, I mean, Roberto Mancini has more information at his fingertips than we would have. A shout out to Excellent Photos, centrally located in Montreal, close to downtown shopping, and university ships to all of Canada, professional staff at the store and online to help you choose the gear you really need. Speaking of photo, this game featured on one occasion going to VAR, where a goal was actually disallowed. Sandro, for a second there, it looked like Austria had taken the lead on a header, but VAR shows clearly offside.
Yeah, VAR showed offside by a knee, by a foot. Was he going to call offside if we turn back the page and there's no VAR? Was the linesman going to call offside on his own? It would have been tight. It would have been hard to see. I've said it since day one. I know there's a lot of people that criticize VAR. There's a lot of people that want improvements. And yes, we all want to improve the system. We all want to improve the game. But I would rather a call on a VAR like today, even if it works in my favor or not. I mean, we need to be able to go back, like the penalty shot on Pessina. If we don't see that there's an offside before that, the ref might be calling a PK right on the spot. So these little things, I think VAR has got it right. I think FIFA has got it right. I think it brings a lot less mistakes to the game. Do you lose a little bit of rhythm and a little bit of that flair? Like you have a team celebrating, like if I'm not mistaken, Denmark today, Brathwaite celebrating like crazy, and now they got to go and check. Yeah. And now everything slows down and the crowd slows down and it removes a little bit of that. Our sport has that flavor to it. It removes it a little bit. But the reality is we get them right. More often than not, the decisions now are right instead of wrong, like back in the day.
Sandro, I know that with Sandro Grande, former professional player, Marinero, the Sick Podcast, and you can, of course, listen to us via the iHeartRadio app and watch us on all social media platforms. Sandro, I know that Italy has scored a ton of goals already this tournament. I mean, probably nobody's looked better, to tell you the truth, even though today it was a struggle and required extra time. But is it just me, or there's something missing in the trident? There's something missing offensively. It seems like Berardi on his right side doesn't have a right foot. If he beats you, he's beating you on a straight line race. Insigne tends to slow everything down, and he's thinking more about coming back than he is going forward. Immobile sometimes, instead of just being an in-the-box type of striker, is coming back way too much and is trying to have too many touches on the ball. Do you see this, or am I getting picky here?
Look, I mean, the reality is that we need to look at the individuals that we have and say, like I've said it for the last 6 months, a year, that Italy is good. Italy is nice to watch. They've turned the page on their old tactics. I've said that clearly. And I also said that they're going to be ready for the next event more so than they were going to be ready for this event. I thought they were going to do well in this event. Obviously, I'm Italian. On any pool that I'm going to do, I'm always going to bet for Italy. That's without question, But the reality is that they're going to need some time. I mean, Barella's 23 or 22 or 24, so like around there. And Locatelli's 23. Berardi's not too old. He's 25, 26. Like, we have a young team, and the attacking options where we lack is probably up top at a striker position, where Immobile is a decent player. I think his qualities, why he plays before Berardi, is because he's able to press better than Berardi. He's also able to make runs into space better than not Berardi, but Belotti. And he's definitely more lethal in the box than Belotti.
Yeah. Having said that, I appreciated Belotti in the final minutes of the game. He had the ball downfield. Yes. He was able to maneuver. He was able to hold on to the ball, protect it, shield it. Actually took some time off the clock. He's hard to knock off the ball.
Yeah, definitely. And that's exactly what he is, So now, you have Insigne on the left. Insigne is not super, super fast. He's very good technically. And the reality is, the way Italy is playing, he's not really a winger. He's more of a number 10, because often he comes inside. He doesn't receive the ball out wide all the time. He receives the majority of his balls in between the lines and almost as a number 10. So that's the type of player he is on the left. And on the right, you have Berardi, that today, unfortunately, he tends to come to the left quite often. One of the goals that Locatelli scored in the earlier games, he faked to go left. He went on his right, crossed it with his right. Locatelli had an empty net against Switzerland, I believe. And today he did that as well one time. But we need to also we got to look at both sides of the coin. In front of him, there's David Alaba. And I don't think there's one club in the world that wouldn't want David Alaba on their team. So he had a tough customer today. It's not going to get easier. But, he's young. He's got time to show us his stuff. What I do like is that everybody that can come off the bench can contribute.
Yes, and
that's a key.
And speaking of coming off the bench, of course, substitutions were made. Chiesa comes in, Belotti comes in, Berardi goes out, Immobile goes out at that point. Also, there were changes that were made in the midfield. Pessina came in. We'll talk about that in a second. So those fresh legs, ultimately, it's Chiesa who scores the big goal at the 95th minute.
Yeah, it's Chiesa that scores the big goal. There's a run inside that attracts Alaba, that opens the space for Chiesa. There's Spinazzola, who's high up the field, who finds the second run instead of the first run. And Chiesa's a goal scorer. This year he showed it in Serie A this year. Yes, Ronaldo scored many goals with Juve this year. The second guy on the list was Chiesa, and the second guy with clutch goals was Chiesa. So he's really got something in his baggage. This young player, and he's going to be fantastic for years to come. So, like I said, like when you have options like this off the bench, guys that can really help you out. Pessina has something. He has something to him. He doesn't look like the best player on the pitch. He doesn't look technically as sweet as a Verratti, for example. But he finds himself in good areas, and even with Atalanta this year, scored quite a few goals as a midfielder, and just fantastic.
Back to Chiesa, goes to the right side, of course. He's able to control it, put it down, put it towards his left. He hammers it in the cross corner. As for Pessina, you talked about him. 10 minutes later, he gets a ball in the box too and is able to to drill it in the far corner as well. Italy's up by a score of 2-0 at that point. It was pretty comfortable. 105 minutes left, 105 minutes into the game, 15 minutes left in regulation. But 4 minutes after Pessina scores, or was it, I believe actually it was probably more than that. But anyway, Pessina scored at the 105. So 9 minutes after Pessina scores, Austria narrows the lead to 2-1. Sandro, it's a fantastic header, and it looked like the Italians were sleeping on a set piece.
Look, Jorginho's on first post, and what I saw, or what I like, I don't know if the instructions that he gets from his staff is what he did, but he came off the first post. He came off the first post to go and almost like challenge the ball and block the shot, whereas I prefer the guy stays on the first post, is ready for any shot, and that ball will never squeeze in there. Donnarumma has nothing to do there. He can't do anything. And what's funny is that they score on the first post, where usually you have your short players running, and the taller players are usually in the middle of the box or the back post. and now you have the tallest player on the field, who's 2 meters tall, who scores on the first post on a diving header on plus.
A fantastic header, as a matter of fact. A shout out to sportbuffshop.com for all of your officially licensed sports apparel and more. Use code SICK15 for 15% off on all of their items. Man of the match, Spinazzola. I thought there were several players that stepped up. I thought Chiesa stepped up and played well. Of course, we have to keep in mind, though, Spinazzola played the entire game, and most of Italy's attacks were actually down the left flank, Sandro. This player has been huge for Italy this tournament.
Yeah, he's been well, and he's been very good. And you know what? The reality is that it's hard to defend him. It's hard to defend him because now all of a sudden you have a right-footed player coming down the left flank, where he can cut inside or he can go on his left. And it becomes very tough to manage. And like I said before, with the combination of Insigne coming inside the line, now you always have your wing back, your right back for Austria, who's often in a 2v1 situation. They were able to manage most of the game, but the reality is that if it happens a couple of times that they're able to find that little combination inside and outside, like on the inside and outside lanes, on opposite lanes, they can create 2v1 situations that are very, very hard to defend.
Sandro Grande, if you could put $1 down on MyBookie, and you can place your bets on MyBookie, go to mybookie.ag/The Sick Podcast and use code SickPicks for a 50% deposit bonus. Bet, win, get paid. Who do you like between Belgium and Portugal? Because guess what? Italy is going to play the winner of that game on Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern. And of course, the game will be played in Munich. Who do you see winning that game, Sandro?
Belgium 2-1.
And it probably won't matter if you think Belgium's going to win, but who do you think is a better opponent for Italy? Would you think that Portugal would be a better opponent, thinking that Belgium's going to win the game, or style makes fights? What do you think?
No, I think it's going to be a tough game either way. I mean, those are two massive nations. Portugal has tons of talent. Belgium has tons of talent in their squad. And look, the reality is that you need to face the best teams to win the Euro Cup, or any other cup for that matter, when you're in these stages. It's knockout rounds. What I did like from Italy, to be honest, is the first half was pretty decent. Second half was not very good. But in extra time, they did not sit back. They attacked. They want to attack. They want to score goals. There aren't many times in the history of Italian football where we see Italy attacking this much. And look, I mean, in 2006, we won 2-0 in extra time against Germany in the semifinals. One of those goals was on a corner kick, and one of those goals was on a counter-attack where we cleared the ball from our own box. Here today, the first goal from Chiesa is not on a corner kick, it's not on a set piece, and they just want to attack, and Spinazzola's up the field. He gets the ball, receives, turns, finds the Chiesa on the back post, and so I think there's a different vibe, but it's going to be a fantastic game. And like I've said since the beginning, I'm going to be proud of Italy because at least now we're playing football, and this is the football we need to play.
Sandro Grande, Italy, 3-0 versus Turkey, 3-0 versus Switzerland, 1-0 versus Wales, and it wasn't easy, but 2-1 in extra time versus Austria. Sandro, we had turkey for supper. We had Swiss cheese for supper. We had whale for supper. And today we had ostrich for supper. Andiamo ragazzi!
Dai ragazzi!
Forza Azzurri, Sandro! Forza Azzurri, Sandro Grande! Thank you for doing this. We're on to the quarters, Sandro. We're on to the quarters. Forza Azzurri, andiamo, Sandro, andiamo!
Forza Azzurri!